So, Alex, where is your intention as you're making these videos?
Well, the biggest intention I have is that of assistance and service to the human race. I think that part of the problem, part of the reason that things are as they are on this planet is because there's not a clear-cut knowledge source from which humans can unequivocally cite and point to. Some of that is very much by design. There's a consciousness of separation and competition which is played out in the human dynamic. A lot of that has been introduced by beings other than human beings, quite frankly. My intention is to help with the education, to help people understand themselves beyond just the genetic, because we have a genetic history, we have a history of Earth and this universe where we come from, and then ultimately we have a history as spiritual beings.
Please tell the viewers, Alexander, about the stages of awakening.
Okay. Well, a lot of that, actually, all of it has to do with choice. Some aspects of being consciously choose to play less awake roles, while others choose to perform very awake roles. The vast majority of them are playing in between those two, coming from a place of dim awareness, which, if you consider the universe as one cohesive whole, all things are a part of the one thing that is. Anything that illustrates something contrary to that concept is rooted in an illusion. I'm not saying that it's fictitious. Maybe I am. It can be true to somebody, even though it's fictitious. Conversely, if we're talking about things that contribute to that concept of the whole, then it is based on truth and builds towards that understanding. Movement away from the whole, I would consider unaware and de-evolving. Movement towards is evolution.
Where do you think you come from?
Well, I'll tell you two stories. My dimmest memory of consciousness I have is of looking on the world from a vast point where it was just a tiny little blue, pretty little marble, and feeling compassion for the beings on that world. The other story I could tell you is that when I was a young boy, my brother and I used to play this game where we were from some other planet or some other reality, and we flew over in these weird little special craft that shrunk us down to the size of atoms, and we flew into our mother's womb and came out one after the other. I'm not going to say that that's the literal truth, but I wouldn't be surprised if we were acting out some sort of genetic or spiritual memory.
There are some individuals on this planet right now who have said that they've had interactions with extraterrestrials and UFOs. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, again, we have to address this on aspects of being. Genetically, many people's physiology goes back to one or more races. The races that you choose to work with and who choose to work with you, you're more or less related to. Now, we also have a spiritual and an emotional component. If you're living out your life in a way that's negative and fear-based and separation consciousness, you'll pull those beings to you, whether human or otherwise. Conversely, if you're about cohesiveness and togetherness, you'll really pull those types of beings to you. It's always been my experience that the further along you progress on an evolutionary state, other forms of consciousness will be just as drawn to you as other human beings would be.
So Alex, what can you tell the viewers about the evolution of consciousness?
Okay. There's a couple of different levels to consciousness that I would like to speak about. There's a universal aspect of consciousness, and then there is consciousness as it pertains to this planet that we're on. So what I can say about conscious universally is that at some degree, everything exists complete unto itself, where there is no up or down or left or right. Everything is just as it is. In that respect, from our perspective, we would call that high consciousness. Some people want to equate that with God, Allah, whatever you understand that to be. This consciousness formed a stage upon which it could act out its ideas of itself. And this physical universe is one of those stages. Earth in particular is of interest in that it displays both high consciousness and low consciousness at the same time. You have great saints standing next to murderers. This is especially pertinent within our species as we're struggling to get to our adolescence. Because right now the human race is, evolutionarily speaking, maybe in like kindergarten or first grade. So we're about to have a very huge shift in understanding and elevation of our consciousness.
A lot of people watching you might feel that you are enlightened, or what one calls enlightened.
Thank you.
What do you have to say about this?
Well, the process of enlightenment is a very long and lonely, sometimes painful road. It does pay off, though. No thing of great worth is received without energy, without, I would even say, great toil. And you have to honestly pursue things to the best of your ability for the right reasons. And in this context, I'm saying right, meaning self-affirming and things that lead you to truth and to source. I have done many, many, many years of research and work into myself. I came from a place where I was horribly depressed and near suicidal, to a point where you clicked on a video and are asking me what I think about things. I think that that time has been marked by a lot of personal work, and I can look back on specific achievements and say, yeah, I did pretty good at that. Or I can also look back and be like, I should have done better. That's just life, though, and I still have the rest of my life to do better than I'm doing now.
Let's say somebody's watching this video right now and they're depressed. What would you advise as far as their next step to move out of that space?
Most people are depressed because they understand that there is something more than the conditions that they're currently living. and the role that they're currently playing. Depression is a sign that you have a major understanding coming down the pike, because what you know to be true is at odds with what you are experiencing right now. The only way that you can get through to that new understanding is at times to literally tear apart everything that you understand and make space for that new truth to come in. There's an old Zen story about a master who was visited by a knowing, scholarly type, and everything that the scholar asked the master, as soon as the master opened his mouth, the scholar would interrupt him. So finally, when the master noticed that the scholar's teacup was empty, he started pouring out tea, and he didn't stop. It just kept on flowing and flowing to the point where the scholar was like, "What are you doing? You're pouring more tea than the cup can hold. How can I drink all the tea if you keep on pouring it?" And then the master stopped and he says, "Well, how can I give you any knowledge if you think that you already know?" We have to approach things with an empty cup.
What are your thoughts on duality?
Duality is a term of expression to explain how many things become one. If you recall, we were just talking about the most sublime level of experience where everything simply is. In order to have an experience of something else that is not sublime, we have to create that possibility. So nothing is in itself not sublime, but the appearance of less than sublime is possible. And that is part of what this universe, in its original design, was intended to provide.
What is Earth?
Earth is beautiful. Earth is our home. It is a living being as well. It is an energy source. It is a stage for experience. And it is something to be treasured and taken care of. As a species right now, most of us aren't doing a very good job of that. And there are consequences to our actions. I don't believe Earth will necessarily punish us, but if you consider within the female body the balance between yeast and bacteria, if one of them gets out of hand, the body has recourses to reestablish homeostasis, and I believe the Earth has those same recourses.
So is that what you think it's doing right now, is trying to attain homeostasis?
Absolutely, as is humanity.
So some people feel that this is the end times, that the end is near, that this is the end of days. What do you have to say?
Well, this is actually a topic that's very near and dear to me. I respect everybody's beliefs, and everybody has the right to create themselves however they wish. So this is just my own feeling, and if this feels true to you, take it. If not, click on one of these other links. The feeling that we're in end times is a conglomeration between apocalyptic mysticism and the Mayan calendar, which people are putting together. This isn't a new thing. At the turn of every century, people are afraid that it's the end. 1999, we saw that. Harold Camping was just making a big hoopla about that. Now, I'm not saying that we exist absent of consequence, but 2012 is not the end of anything. And furthermore, I believe that the Mayans made the calendar round to illustrate a point. There's no beginning and no end on a circle. Every point feeds into the next one. And this is just another, this is a very important awareness point. This is a point that we can look back on ourselves and take stock of what we have achieved as a race and conceive of what we would like to in the future.
Tell us about the word death and what it actually means.
Most people are afraid of that word because most people identify solely with the body. Furthermore, most cultures, especially in our Western perspective, deal with things in finite terms. It has a beginning, it has a middle, it has an end. But we have to understand that the greatest part of us exists outside of linear concepts of time and is immune to death. In this sense, I would like to make the suggestion that death is more of a transition. It's like an osmosis, passing from one phase of being into a lighter form. And most of the time, when people die, they have a completely different shape than whatever this is.
Tell me about heaven and hell.
Heaven and hell. Highly charged emotional topics because of prevailing mythologies. Heaven and hell, in my experience, have been emotional and mental states of awareness. You can get in your own way, or you can get out of your own way. You can serve yourself, or you can serve others. You can use life in a way that puts people down or lifts them up. All of these actions have consequence that is returned to you as the originator of that energy source. Because if we all are one, there's only one person that you're doing that to ultimately. But as this place, if your soul is non-physical, how can it go to a place when it dies?
What do you see, Alexander, as the difference between science and spirituality on an energetic level?
Well, that's a very good question. Spirituality was the science of yesteryear. A lot of the things that people couldn't quantify because they existed outside of their own experience, they called that mystical or spiritual. I'm a being who is dedicated to demystifying the mysterious. So I will engage certain things on a scientific basis just so that on one hand I can illustrate my intelligence and knowing in the matter, because I also believe that a lot of people who rely solely on spirituality can come off as kooky, while people who rely solely on science can come off as unapproachable and stiff and veiled and walled off. So on an energetic level, that just has to do with vibration and ease of relation to people. If you think about vibration in terms of harmony and dissonance, the things that are maybe not for you or that you haven't evolved to yet will feel very dissonant and upsetting to you. If you know that it's something you're supposed to know, what you're actually feeling is your belief systems being shaken because you have two apparently contradicting truths vying for the same little piece of real estate on one of your neurons. If you find something like that, though, that is very powerful and shaking, you'll literally have an energetic opening. One of your centers will just fly right open, and a new you will be born.
Gender studies is a topic of interest. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay. Gender primarily deals with the physical aspect of the body and generally incorporates some of the mental aspects. As a soul, we choose the physical container that we wish to experience. I like to call it a multidimensional physical vehicle. Make an acronym out of that. When you talk about the energies of creation, you'll notice that, and let me preface this by saying I make no preference as to what kind of relationships people choose to form. Someone can be happy within a male-female, female-female, male-female, multiple males and females in different combinations. Just whatever you're doing, make sure that you're representing source and spirit as you do it. Now, having said that, I'd like you to take a moment to consider the sexual dimorphic differences between men and women. And this has been very well represented by the figure of the star tetrahedron, wherein males are more V-tapered this way, females are more V-tapered this way. And if you want to dig even deeper into that, males inside them have a lower genital aspect, whereas females have an upper, which have the same basic shape. You have a sphere, and you have two other spheres outside of that main one. In order to create life, biologically, we have to engage in an energetic exchange set up at a specific frequency. Now, in this culture that has taken on a lot of different dynamics, again, I don't have any judgment about that. But along with those characteristics, you have within this culture different ideas. A lot of these ideas have historically gone back to many different cultures and have a lot of emotion attached to it, which is why it's such a highly charged topic. But I can tell you that in higher evolved societies, the gender difference between men and women are very much honored and respected, whether it's a life giver in the sense of a sharing of essence or a carrier of life, such as a mother would be. Very sacred positions.
What do you think is going on with all of these white things floating across the screen?
I saw some of that in the footage. Well, we can speculate on a couple of things. The first thing that I want to maybe throw out there is that we're shooting this video with an Android Bionic camera. So if it's a technological effect, it sure is timed in strange places. But I can tell you that during the editing of this video, we haven't been imposing any artificial special effects other than the cuts, so transitioning from one frame to another. I really take pains to ensure that what I'm saying reflects what's in my heart. And prior to setting up and speaking with you, I set an intention that the right questions be answered, and the right questions be asked, and the right answer be given. And if these manifestations have anything to do with that process, I'm not really trying to stay, I'm not trying to be in its way.
Is it true you have a book?
Yeah, I wrote a book in my 20s, and it very loosely jumps into topics, and it's kind of provided in a way that gives food for thought. I wrote it under a pseudonym in order to dissuade like a personality cult or an over-affiliation with the author. So my book is called 72 Treatises, and it's written under the pseudonym The Bleating Nicodemus. Bleating like sheep noise, and then Nicodemus like the biblical character. You can find it on lulu.com, or you can Google the term Lulu plus 72 Treatises. Basically, it's a bunch of art, poetry, and prose, and Platonic dialogue that's made to engage both hemispheres of your brain, because you have a logical and an intuitive side. Both must fire in order for you to knowledgeably perceive the world.
So what's karma?
Karma is consequence experienced by the self after setting a certain intention in motion. If I go out and decide that I'm going to pass by somebody who needs help, genuinely needs help, then I'm passing by myself. Therefore, I will be passed by at a later junction. That's not an argument to go out and feed every homeless person, because there are some people who are addicted to victimhood. What I'm saying is that in the instance that you know that you are of service, genuinely of service to someone or something, you will have that knowledge. Do you choose to act on it? Do you choose to be selfish? The choice is yours. The thing at stake is who you ultimately become.
What would you say to someone who's watching this video right now and is questioning their path?
In one sense, I want to say always question your path. Question the extent to which you can grow. Because if you're shooting for truth and knowledge and love and enlightenment, you'll never miss your target, no matter how far off the path you go. But I want to say, be gentle with yourself. Know that everything unfolds according to a grander design, which you're a part of. We're all in this together. We're all trying to help each other come to truth. I'm trying to help you come to truth. You're going to go out tomorrow and help someone else come to truth. It will happen. What you have to do is make sure that the truth that you're seeking is one of unity and one of love. And that truth ultimately lies within all of us. We have a lot of blocks and discouragement on attaining truth, because truth isn't really something that you find or something that you tell. It's something that you are, and it's something that we haven't been allowed to see for a long, long time.
What holds people back from moving forward in their consciousness?
Themselves, mostly. We have a lot of conditioning as a species to interpret the world and the universe that we live in a certain way. I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but a being who lives a 9-to-5 job and has 2.5 kids and goes out and makes money and, you know, gets a good-looking partner in their life and shiny cars and LCD TVs, is possible to attain a high sense of awareness within that framework, but it's very, very difficult. The more that you add to it, the less that you're focused on evolution as a task. Now, somebody, conversely, who has let go of all their attachments and has gone to live on the mountain and grows a big beard or lets their breasts sag or whatever, might have the opportunity to go to extremely high levels of consciousness, but do they have the opportunity to share that? Are they utilizing all those resources? Furthermore, what was the purpose in abandoning society to go out there? Somewhere between those two paths, here we are reaching out to you through the medium of the internet. And I just hope that whatever truths we are exposing for you, whether you're long in the game or have just come to it, you're able to take to heart, jot down a note, and go do some wild research. It's all about you.
So which way is right and which way is wrong?
I have no preferences in the matter, just observations. I observe that if you wish to live a long and healthy life and obtain true prosperity, you must behave as if everything you do, you're doing to yourself. And if you're doing something to somebody else, you're actually doing it to yourself, because that's a piece of you having a different experience.
What do you think about the use of the internet today?
So long as the internet remains a free and unrestricted medium, I believe it is responsible for much of the awakening taking place nowadays, to the extent that the powers that be are going out of their way to monitor how it's used. Anytime that governmental or political forces seek to impose regulation on a new medium, and we found this with like tape recordings and even in more primitive times, the right to assemble. You can be assured that what you are viewing is something that they fear will awaken you.
What are your views on the concept of ascended masters? Are there masters outside of self? Is there anything outside of self?
Well, a lot of that has to do with how broadly you're defining the word self. In my view, everything is one thing. So what we're really talking about is different levels of awareness of consciousness and different densities of physical expression. So in that sense, yes, there are beings who exist on levels finer than flesh and blood. There are beings who have gone through a complete evolutionary cycle and have decided to come back to assist. And there are other beings who never left that sublime state and are looking on creation with compassion. And many people have reported encounters with such consciousness, sentient beings. What I would consider as masters in flesh, and we're talking about in literature people such as Krishna and Buddha and Christ, outside of the lessons that they provided us on togetherness and harmony, these people are more like blueprints for what we can become if we get out of our separation consciousness and come together as a species.
Viewers want to know about the actual process and stages of ascension.
Okay. Well, you have, I would like to say maybe 5 different types of people. There's someone who doesn't know and doesn't know that they don't know. And these people are like blank slates. They don't care, and they're not searching, and they're fine with that. They don't even understand that there's anything to search for. They accept things as is. Now, there are also people who don't know, but they know that they don't know. And these type of people are actively searching for a truth. Many of these people pass through different belief systems and different faiths along their way, whether for one lifetime or more. There's people who know, but they don't know that they know. And these people have true wisdom, but they don't know how to access it, or they don't know how to put it into a particular phraseology that most people can relate to. Then there's people who don't know, but that they think that they know. And they're very, very dangerous. Those people are charlatans. And if you trust your senses, then you will feel that the rightness or the wrongness of what they have to say, and if it's for you. And then there's people who know and know that they know. And these people are very special, and you should pay attention to them. Because these are the people that will tell you that the truth lies within you and lead you to that truth by introducing you to your own self.
What's the difference between mind and the brain?
The brain is a processor and a physical organ. It operates with a certain type of software, in this case, bioelectrical chemical. Okay? The mind is an energy. The brain is local to your skull. The mind is not. The mind surrounds your entire being. If you took a cell off of your body and put it in a little dish, it would crawl around and do things of its own accord, trying to survive. Even at that level of physical existence, a component of mind exists. Now, not only that, they have taken cells off of people and flown it to New York while the other person sat in, like, China, just as a for instance. And whatever that person seemed to think and go through, the cells on the other side of the world reacted to it. There's lots of different areas of research that I would encourage you to look into. David Wilcock is actually very knowledgeable about such things. I'd refer you to his work on the matter.
In your opinion, what's the ego?
The ego is the aspect of ourself that must exist in order for us to have an experience of ourself as ourself, separate from everything else. Because in truth, there is no separation. Even if we look at physical objects, it's just different forms of density of matter with energy in between. The ego allows us to have the me experience. You know, I'm Alex Gallier, and I'm talking to people on the internet. I'm somebody on the internet listening to Alex Gallier talk. There is a point where we're both one, but if we already knew that, then the game would be over, and you wouldn't have to listen to this right now. just need to take a moment to chew on some things. I'm very much a stickler at clarity of thought because most races are telepathic, and I can just send this out in a thought packet or a symbol that would be understandable, but now I have to work my language processing banks. Okay. Human awareness progresses in several different areas. I have what I like to call soul level awareness, mind level awareness, and body level awareness. So from the level of the body, we're dealing obviously with genetics, with things that your DNA has physically experienced, whether in yourself, as yourself, or as one of your ancestors. One of the things I like to ask people to consider is if your mom or dad was 25 when they had you, to an extent you can say that you had 25 years of their experience prior to them passing that genetic beacon on to you. So if you want to call that karma, that's one way to look at it. We have another level of understanding of awareness, which is the mind. Now, the mind in some ways is useful as a tool because it allows you to separate yourself from your awareness that you are one with everything and gives you a framework within which to play. Your mind can cloak you from that apparent reality, and whatever culture you're born into will give you their take on it. Some people surrender to that and play out that cultural identity until their time in this incarnation is up. At the point that you transcend your mind or your ego understanding of who you are and once again reconnect, because it's all about the recreation of who you already are, you gain access to your own unique gift that you can give to everyone else. And then once again, I'd like to touch on the soul aspect of understanding. This is the part of you that understands unequivocally everything. This is the part of us that when we're seeking out something, the information just falls out. Or if you're thinking hard about somebody, they call you on the phone. This is an aspect of being that isn't touched on much in this culture. And when I say this culture, I mean Western contemporary culture. This is the aspect that we are struggling as a species to integrate within ourselves. And this is the level of awareness to which we aspire.
What role does honesty play in the evolution of humanity's awakening?
Honesty is so crucial. It's not, the truth isn't something that you tell, it's something that you are. The teachings that I have come to and the ones that I will share with you is that honesty, awareness, and responsibility are the magic formula for personal evolution. And because this is something that raises your vibrational rate and your consciousness level, every room that you enter will be affected. Every person you think of will be affected.
Was there an Atlantis?
Yes, although that's not what they called it. Atlantis is something that has been passed down through Western history It's Greek in origin. But what we understand is Atlantis was actually a very ancient colony on Earth, which was maintained by extraterrestrials, and in which humans were service beings. The oldest language that we have a term for in Earth tongue, let me say that again, the oldest language that we have a term for human being that we are able to access at this present is that of the Sumerian. And human beings are called Lulu, which literally means mixed being, but it also has a connotation of a domestic animal, like a service animal, like an ox. If you would really like to look into some of these things, look up ancient Sumerian history, Assyrian history. Psy-chick is a good source for that, but you'll also want some objective scientific sources, because all of us are just doing our best with what we have. Some of us follow our intuition, and we all have a piece of the puzzle, but none of us have 100%. We're meant to work together, and that's why all these knowledge threads are overlapping.
Explain time.
Well, I want you to consider the fact that time is an energy. Okay? Human beings equate time with motion. Where was the Earth when this happened? Where was the Sun when this happened? Where was it relative to the galaxy when this happened? Those measurements we have quantified in order to have something to measure our existence as beings, because our bodies over time wear out. Now see, this is another fault of ours. We have language, so like I have to use the word time in order to define time. Time as it really exists, though, if you can conceive of it as like an ice cube. You can have a solid chunk of time, you can have a liquid form of time, or you can have a gaseous form of time. What we're talking about is space, relative events, things that are together, vibrational realities. Time is very fluid if you explore it with the right technology. The best technology to explore is with the mind, and the worst technology is things like interdimensional craft and devices and ships.
In your opinion, what's happening with this whole 2012 idea that's floating around lately?
That's a very big question. I'll try to succinctly answer it. Let me first touch on the experience of memory versus deja vu. I feel like your information recall works in both directions if we're looking at it from a linear time perspective. Memory generally trails into what we would perceive as the past, whereas deja vu trails into what's known as the future. Now with 2012 specifically, we're looking at a focal point of awareness within our civilization. It's not just our civilization that's noticing this. Many, many others also are aware of this. In fact, there are several who have played around with temporal realities concerning the whole 2012 loop. What I will say is 2012 is a point that the universe looks back on itself, because humanity, specifically humanity, the genetics, Earth humans orbiting around the sun, are such special and unique individuals that I honestly want to have an emotion while I'm talking about this. But the capacity for 7 billion people to come into a point of self-awareness equivalent to what the masters espoused. Imagine 7 billion Jesus Christs, 7 billion Krishnas, 7 billion Buddhas. Can you imagine the effect that that would have upon the universe? We as physical beings only exist for 70 to 130 years. If 7 billion people went through that, it would be the equivalent of a human being aging from a baby to an adult within 5 seconds. Coming into self-responsibility and truly being who they are. That is one of the most beautiful things I can ever conceive.